Okay, next up, we're going to hear from Global Geoscience and the Managing Director, Bernard Rowe. Bernard.
Thanks, Leo, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be running through in 10 or so minutes to give you an insight into our rather unique lithium and boron deposit that's located in Nevada in the United States. There's a disclaimer there you can read in your leisure. Global Geoscience is an ASX listed company. We have about 1.3 billion shares on issue, a share price of around about 43 cents, so market cap is about just under 600 million. We have cash in the bank of about 34 million, so the company is fully funded. We are midway through a pre-feasibility study on the Rhyolite Ridge deposit. That'll be due for completion around July this year. It's a great board of directors that we have in the company, headed up by our chairman James Callaway, the former chairman of Orocobre, Alan Davies, who's in the vast audience. See if you can pick him. From former CEO of Industrial Minerals and Energy, amongst other things, at Rio Tinto, which then included the the US Borax boron business and the Jadar Serbian lithium boron deposit. Myself, I'm one of the founding shareholders and managing director of the company. I listed it about 10 years ago, have kept an active focus in exploration in Nevada, and it was through that exploration work that we've done over the years that we, about 2 years ago, came across this really quite relatively unknown deposit. It's lithium and boron. I think everyone knows what lithium's used for in the battery space. Probably not so many of you are familiar with boron. And it's used primarily in glass and ceramics. So it's a hardener and it lowers thermal expansion in glass. So it's great for toughening glass and preventing it from cracking as it shrinks and expands, heating and cooling. It's also used extensively in agriculture as a micronutrient and in insulation, fiberglass. The location in Nevada is a pretty critical part of this story. Currently there's only one producing lithium mine in the United States, that's Silver Peak, located in southern Nevada, just about 15 kilometres from our project. That mine's been in operation since the 1960s, produces about 4,000 tonnes of lithium carbonate a year. So it's a really small producer, it's old, it can't expand, and it only supplies a very small amount of what the projected demand is in the US going forward. The Rio Tinto's boron mine in California is about 300 kilometres away from us, and it's the only sizable boron producer in the United States. It produces about 40% of the world's boric acid supply, supplied into the US and dominates the US market, plus Asia. So really, for a country that has quite an appetite or a strong demand for both products, there really is no supply that's coming on stream other than our project at Rhyolite Ridge. It's the largest lithium boron deposit in the US. It contains about 4 million tonnes of lithium carbonate and nearly 12 million tonnes of boric acid. So it's a dual revenue sort of project, obviously, with the lithium boron, and the revenue split is roughly 50-50. So the boron is not there as a credit, it's a co-product. And you'll see some numbers that I'll show in a minute. We treat them as two separate production streams and cost them separately as well, to ensure that we are cost competitive compared to our peers for both commodities. The key point on this slide really is the bottom left corner, where I compare it to the other sources of lithium. Brines, this deposit, because it's hard rock, has big capital cost advantages over the lithium brines. It's very simple to process. Mining costs, crushing costs and leaching costs are very low, so it has big OPEX advantages over the pegmatites. So we're looking at a potential third source of lithium in this deposit, which can be structurally low cost and very long life, sitting in North America, and it's at surface. So you can see that's the share price performance since August 2016, where we first announced the initial resource on the deposit. So you can see we've run from about 5 cents up to 50 over that period of time. And importantly, we've made regular announcements, updates around the metallurgy and processing of the deposit, which was the result of good, strong, systematic work on the processing side, coupled with people like James and Alan coming in and joining the board, John Hofmeister. In October last year, we raised $32 million through Citibank. About a third of that money came from New York. It was all put away to about 12 institutions. So those things have certainly helped, that trajectory of the share price over that period of time. So just comparing it to the brines and the pegmatites, the key difference really is in these three types is what your end product is. So for a brine, the end product is lithium carbonate. Could be technical grade or battery grade, but all of them will produce one or both of those, and then they can convert that into hydroxide for an extra cost. But the end product is a high value unit value product. For the pegmatites, spodumene, of course, they produce a mineral concentrate that is then sent somewhere else entirely, at this stage in time, entirely to China, where it's converted into lithium carbonate or lithium hydroxide through a roasting process. In the case of Rhyolite Ridge, because the lithium and the boron is acid soluble, we can hard rock mine this. It's actually soft rock, but it's solid, so it's an open cut or quarry type operation. Crush the ore, hit it with sulfuric acid, leach the lithium and the boron out, and then we have a solution that's got both those products in it, and do a process that's similar to what the brines do at the back end, meaning that we can produce lithium carbonate or lithium hydroxide or lithium sulfate directly at the site. We have drilled a resource of about 460 million tonnes in total. The key to the resource, though, is not that overall tonnage, but the high-grade lithium-boron mineralisation, where you get the two together. This is not separate zones within the deposit, it's lithium and boron together. And for that part, we have drilled about 140 million tonnes of that mineralisation. But the top left map there shows that our mining claims in the white outline. So we have two blocks, north and south. They're about 13 kilometres from north to south. And the drilling area, which is outlined in blue there, represents about 20% of the total area. And we know that this mineralisation continues. So at 137 million tonnes, we've probably got a mine life of 30 years, but it's easy to see how this could easily expand to 60 or 100-year mine life. So this is a really serious, top tier lithium and boron asset that really doesn't have any peers. This is a cross section through the deposit, so as I mentioned before, it comes right to the surface, and the zones of boron with lithium in blue here are 20 to 30, but up to 50 metres in thickness. But generally they average 20 or 30 metres in thickness. So, it's very simple mining, low cost, nice competent rock, but it's not hard, and lots of tonnes in the top 150, 200 metres. And it's very consistent over several square kilometres. And that's why we're confident that as we step out and drill further, we will find more of the same. I mean, every drill hole that we've drilled out there has hit this style of mineralisation. And just the way that it's formed means that it's very likely to continue over the whole of the prospective area. So just a quick look at the very simple processing in a cartoon sort of style, the processing flow sheet that we're proposing. So open cut mining up the top, a coarse crush. The crush size is something we're still working out, but it's going to be somewhere between 1 inch and 6 inches. So it's quite coarse. We put that onto a heap leach pad or into a vat. and we either irrigate it with sulfuric acid or flood the vat with sulfuric acid and water, and we can leach out 98, 97% is the sort of numbers we're getting, and so it's very, very high recoveries. And the really great thing about it is that it happens very, very fast. So we're talking days of leach time, not weeks or months. Once we've leached it, it's in a solution. It goes to a processing facility where we separate the boron first through crystallisation, and then the lithium, and remove the impurities that are in there. So this is new in the sense that it's never been applied to a lithium deposit before, but of course the technology we're talking about here is not new technology. It's a leaching sort of operation akin to an oxide copper deposit, SXCW type copper deposit, and the back end is similar to the chemistry of the brines, but the chemistry is different, so there's a bit of optionality there for us. And as far as we know, this is the only deposit in the world where heap leaching or vat leaching with sulfuric acid has been successfully demonstrated. These two photos sort of tell the story. The photo on the left is the ore just taken from surface and crushed at 6 inches, and it generates very little fines, so it's got very low clay content. It's 40% one mineral, which is a sodium borosilicate mineral, which is really what holds the rock together and allows us to do this sort of leaching, is that mineral. When we leach the rock with the sulfuric acid over a period of days or weeks, then the photo on the right shows what you end up with. So the rock maintains its integrity, but you get high 90s of recovery for the lithium and the boron. So we can be really quite selective about taking the lithium and boron out without sort of destroying the whole rock, which would create a problem for the disposal, higher costs for the disposal of the tailings, but also it would mean more of the deleterious impurities would come into the solution. So again, this is quite unique in a deposit like this, where you can be so selective, and it's all got to do with the solubility in acid of these minerals. How am I going for time, Leo? I'm still good? Wind up? Yep, okay. So I'll finish with this slide because this is really ultimately where we're heading. What's our cash costs for producing lithium carbonate and boric acid? These are indicative costs. These are not these have not been subject to the pre-feasibility study, so they're only targets. But it's around about $4,000 a tonne for lithium carbonate, and about $400 to $500 per tonne for boric acid costs. If you assume an 80% recovery, which is where we think we will be roughly, and conservative sale price of $8,000 for lithium carbonate and $800 for boric acid, then the revenue generated from from producing 1 tonne of lithium carbonate is $8,000 plus the 8 tonnes of boric acid, which is $6,400. So you've got a revenue of $14,400 versus a combined cost of the two products of around about $7,000 to $8,000. So there's a 50% margin there, and that's using very conservative prices for both commodities. So you can see the attraction of this deposit, and I think another thing that's perhaps not on that slide, but the scale of it is we're looking at mining about 3 million tonnes a year, which would give us about 20,000 tonnes of boric acid. So indicative sort of revenue from what we're proposing to do is around about $300 million with a margin of about 150. Okay, so I think I'll leave it there. There's a little bit of a summary, but I've mentioned all those things. Thanks, Leo.
Thank you.